folks. Thanks for clicking in. I'm Jason Crawford Samios-Uy, and this is Backstage Bits. Now, you might recognize the set as the one we use for Backstage Banter, a show that I co-host with Patrick J. Golden. However, if you are not familiar, please check out our website at backstagebaltimore.wordpress.com and click on the tab that says Backstage Banter. Now, Backstage Banter are videos where Patrick and I sit down and discuss the shows that we review and give our 2 cents and give our insight and what we thought. Backstage Bits is going to be a little different, whereas I will sit down with the cast and crew of the shows that we review and get their insight and their 2 cents. So for the inaugural episode of Backstage Bits, I had the pleasure and the honor of sitting down with Red Branch Theater Company's cast of Evil Dead the Musical. And without further ado, let's see what the cast thought. Alright, so we have Ben Stoll here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having
here
me.
on Backstage Bits. So you are the man of the hour in Evil Dead.
Well, the hero, if you will.
The hero. The anti-hero or the hero. Which is actually one of my first questions I have for you. So Ash is such this iconic character. Were you familiar with the Evil Dead films before you even auditioned for this?
I was actually shown them by a very good friend of mine who was obsessed with horror movies. He introduced me to all 3 Evil Dead movies that we watched in a cabin in the woods in Ohio.
Nice.
And from there, I watched them many, many times over the past year before I even knew that the show was happening. And so, getting the part of Ash was definitely daunting, but exciting at the same time.
Yeah, it's big shit. And we have Carson Gregory, who takes on the role of Linda in Red Branch Theater productions of Evil Dead the Musical. Thank you so much for joining us, Linda, here on Backstage Bits. Very excited.
First, I got to work.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
I got to work on a cabaret production. I choreographed it, and we just did kind of some numbers for the show. So I got to learn about it first that way, and it was so much fun. And I always wanted to work on the full production, and then I got to.
Yeah.
The movies I saw much later, and they're their own thing. Very much so.
All right, so we have Angelisa Anderson, who plays Shelly/Annie in Red Branch Theater's production of Evil Dead the Musical. So, when Shelly first walked out on that stage, I gotta tell you, I wanted to choke a bitch out.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
But, just proves what a good job you did.
Oh, thank you.
Because you did a fantastic job in this.
My characters weren't a huge part of the movies, the original movies. Shelley was there, and she was the first death.
Yeah.
And then Annie did what she did in the show, in the movie, but I think they were both much more fleshed out in the musical.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
And we have Danny Berto. I was about to call you Scotty. Danny Berto, who plays Scott in Red Branch Theater Company's production of Evil Dead the Musical. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight on Backstage Bits. Had you worked with Red Branch before?
I have. I've done 2 other shows here before. I've done Triumph of Love a few years ago, and then I did Spring Awakening, which was last season, yes, and I played Melchior in that. And that was my first time working with Jenny Mail here at Red Branch, and working with her again has just been an absolute joy.
Yeah, I've heard that repeatedly from people.
She's
Good.
just a godsend.
Good. Yeah, she did a great job with the show. You take on the part of Linda, which is the hero, or as I call anti-heroes, love interest. And I remember her in the film. How did you go about, making this part your own?
Well, me as a person, I'm not really like girly and I was never the girl with like the blonde curly hair and the pearl earrings. So I tried to give Linda.
My God, I was.
So I tried to give her a little bit more of an edge, a little more spunk, as opposed to just being a little light and airy. I wanted to give her a little more spunk.
Yeah, and it worked. It worked.
Yeah,
the way you played her
was
absolutely good. And now we have Mr. Peter Boyer, who is Jake in Red Branch Theater Company's production of Evil Dead the Musical. Thank you so much for joining us, Peter.
Thank you.
I did a backstage banter for Backstage Baltimore, and I mistakenly said that Jake's character was not in the movie. That's because I was more familiar with the first one, and then I saw the second one, and I said, well, slap my ass. I'll be damned if he's not there. With a wife, no less. Yep. So I do apologize for that. That was my mistake. I blame my research team on that. But otherwise, how did it feel to take on, a part in such an iconic music? Was there pressure on it? Did you feel like it was daunting?
Not really, but I didn't feel like it was daunting because I've done a fair amount of campy stuff before, and stuff with music and things like that before, and you just kind of jump in and just see where it goes, and didn't visit much of the original movies until fairly late in the process. Although I did do a quick YouTube on Jake, just to make sure I wasn't going too far off.
We have Mr. Cole Watts, who plays Ed in Red Branch Theater Company's production of Evil Dead the Musical. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight, Cole. Poor Ed, the character. What did I call him? A belittled boyfriend.
Yeah,
I think is what he was. The poor guy just kept getting cut off and didn't really have a backbone, and until his whatever happened to him, I won't give it away. But how did you go about forming your character with him?
So for me, I had read the script and I was like, hey Jenny, Ed keeps getting interrupted. Is that sort of a thing? She's like, oh yeah, like that's kind of his shtick. It's like
that's the comedy.
Yeah, that's the comedy. He keeps getting interrupted. So for me, I think the hardest part was trying to make it natural that I was being interrupted. So what I had to do is sit down and like almost finish every line, you know, and be like, if Angelisa doesn't cut me off immediately, what is he gonna say next?
Right.
And just kind of rolling with that. I've also never played like a more shy character. So for me, that was a lot of fun. That was very interesting. Like to get into that kind of psychology.
No, good job. All right, so we have Sarah Goldstein, who plays Cheryl in Red Branch Theater Company's production of Evil Dead the Musical. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Backstage Bit. He's put on a hell of a show.
Thank you.
Really, it's really a good show. And were you familiar with it? Were you familiar with the whole Evil Dead thing?
I had heard of everything, hadn't like seen or listened to anything, and then when we were called in to audition for this, I looked into it a little bit and I was like, oh, so it's just like spoof horror. Like, that's fun. Everybody loves that. And I didn't want to watch the movie before doing it just because I kind of wanted to figure out what Cheryl was. I read the character description of the three girls. It was like, this one's like the ingenue, and this one's really smart and sexy, and this one's the awkward sister who turns into an asshole. And I was like, oh, that's probably the one I'm going in.
You didn't copy Bruce Campbell, which was a very good thing. You weren't a second-rate version of Bruce, and you made this part your own. How difficult was that? What did you do to kind of figure out how to do this character?
It's something that the director, Jenny Mail, and I talked about extensively, because I came to her and I said, I don't just want to try and be Bruce Campbell, because if you do that, you're going to fail. Nobody can do it like Bruce Campbell. But at the same time, he has made it so iconic that you have to pay him his due. You have to have some sort of homage in there. And so we started with my interpretation. If I were this person in these situations, how would I react? And then we were able to bleed in a little bit of Bruce's masterful groundwork and taking the bits that would, show nods to the movies, but not rip off the movies.
Right.
It was about honoring them while making it your own, as opposed to just trying to carbon copy, because that is the worst possible idea with Bruce Campbell, because you can't do it as good as him.
Always be a first-rate version of yourself, not a second-rate version of somebody else. Were you familiar with this iconic story, the films, everything before you started this?
I had seen them in bits and parts with some friends a few summers ago, and I really just enjoyed them. And then I actually saw the second movie first, and then I saw the rest of the first movie, finished that, and I was like, okay, now a lot of things are starting to make sense.
Gotcha.
Because the second one's just so funny. Yeah. Because it kind of just makes fun
quirky.
Of itself. And I was like, oh, this is hilarious. I thought people were this is a horror movie. And I saw the first one, and I was still kind of like, I thought this was supposed to be a horror movie. But it's just so funny that just love watching.
How did you take this on? Were you familiar with it before you did this, or?
Not when I auditioned. Right when I got the call to come in, I listened to the soundtrack and I Googled what there is to Google about the show.
Did you research?
I did research. I never actually saw the movies until after I had been cast in the show. So
that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Evil Dead is so iconic that even people that don't watch horror, don't watch anything in that like sort of genre, it gets to them, like you know of it at the very least. So I was definitely one of those people that like I knew what it was, I'd never seen it. Yeah. And then when I got into the process, I was like, I should probably watch these. Definitely a good decision.
Was it much different than
I was kind of expecting just these like amazing cult horror films, and then I find out it's like basically slapstick humor in a horror movie, and I'm like, this is awesome. So I understand why there's like such a big following for it.
It's hilarious. Have you you worked with Red Branch before?
I did. I did Sweeney here in the spring, and that
So
was
you're
my
familiar with
first
the
show.
blood?
Yes,
Okay.
and the Jenny, because she, our fabulous director for Evil Dead, she did
Jenny
the
Mail.
fight choreo for that, and also the God That's Good cup choreography for that show, which is really intense. And so she was so much fun to work with then, and then her taking on these bigger roles in this show was so great.
Again, I'm hearing a lot of good things about Miss Jenny Mail.
There's a reason.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. It's a fun piece.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can't take things too seriously, I guess, with something like this. But like, I mean, did you get anything out of this? You know, for as far as character-wise goes, or learn anything new?
The biggest thing you really get out of this is how to really play with an audience, because it's so self-referential and things like that it's you're never, this isn't a sort of show you go deep into the character for. You're always very aware of the fact that you're playing with the audience and getting a vibe off of them and doing little things with them.
So how was the process here? Have you worked with Red Branch before?
This is my first show with Red Branch, and it was a fantastic process. We jumped right in. It actually took us a couple weeks to get a full cast because we had a couple ups and downs with getting the cast solidified. But the crew is fantastic. Jenny is an amazing director, and everyone just worked well together. We became a family so fast.
Good.
And so
that is very. What about the special effects? Had you worked with special effects like this before?
No. I've been in shows that use special effects, but I've never dealt directly with them. So
how was it?
It was fun. I was the first person to practice with the blood, and it was terrifying. And now it's super fun.
Were they brought in the special effects?
Oh,
were they brought in
geez.
early? Were they brought in Tech Week? Or?
I think they were brought in like maybe a week before Tech.
Oh, wow.
That sounds about right.
Wow.
So, I mean, because there's a lot that goes into the coordinating of like, you have to figure out, okay, where am I going to get this from? Like, you know, because if it's a blood egg or a mouth blood, like it doesn't just appear magically. So it's choreography. It's like a dance of like, how do we hand this off? In fact, Danny, who plays Scott, has a little mouth blood handoff with me. He has to hold it like this, and I just like chomp it out of his hands.
Did you ever mix them up?
Oh God, no. But sometimes because I have this little bowl in this. I wish I could show you my cellar. It's like cribs. It's great, but sometimes the blood eggs will crack a little, and then my mouth bloods will get soaked in the laundry detergent. I'm like, why? But it's okay.
And what about special effects? Have you dealt with special effects or anything? 'Cause there's a ton of special effects in this.
Yeah, I've had a decent amount of experience with stage blood and all this sort of stuff. So a lot of the technical details were very familiar to me, although I've never done it quite so much.
And it's such an intimate space too.
Yeah.
How was that difficult working with all of those special effects in such a small space?
The one difficult thing is that you get this blood all over the stage and then you have to dance on it.
Yeah, I guess so.
So it's sort of like dancing on a skating rink.
What about the special effects? Had you worked with special effects before, like this?
Thanks to Jenny Mail, who I work with in Ohio also, I was used to a little bit of blood, but nothing like this. This was much more intense because it was such an intimate scale. Because we're all in this cabin, the audience is so close, and we know we've got our splash zone. So not only the lighting, which was just wonderful, but also the blood, first and foremost, was a blast. Getting covered in it every night, getting to throw it on other people. So
Right.
It makes Evil Dead. You can't have Evil Dead without the effects.
How did this become for you as a musical? I mean, did it fit? Did you feel uncomfortable at first? Did you fit right in? I mean,
not at all. Jenny likes to say that this is more of a play with songs as opposed to an actual musical. People come here for the overall experience. They're not expecting to see these fantastic Broadway numbers. So for us, it was, the way it's written is campy, so it doesn't really matter if it's sort of a weird segue into a song. We made it our own. We talked about how to get in and out of it, what we could do to make it fun. That was the most important thing. If we were having fun with the music and the dancing, the audience was going to have fun. If we made it look awkward, it was going to be awkward for them. So
how much ad-libbing was in this? Was that a secret?
I can show you. No, I can show you a script, but we had our moments.
I'll bet. No, you guys seem very comfortable with each other, and it made for an awesome show. It really did. All right, well, thank you so much, Ben, for joining us here at Backstage Bits, and hopefully we will see you again. I'm very much looking forward to seeing more of your work.
Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ben Stahl. Again, you did a fantastic job in this, phenomenal, and thank you so much for joining us here on Backstage Bits. Really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Angelisa Anderson in Red Branch Theater production of Evil Dead the Musical.
Thank you.
Well, you have Mr. Danny Berto, who plays Scott in Red Branch Theater Company's production of Evil Dead the Musical. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight,
Always
Danny.
a pleasure.
And hope to see you again soon.
All right.
And thank you so much for joining us today, ladies and gentlemen. Carson Gregory, who plays Linda in Red Branch Theater Company's production of Evil Dead the Musical.
Thank you.
Mr. Peter Boyer, thank you for joining us here on Backstage
Thank you,
Bits.
sir.
Peter Boyer plays Jake in Red Branch Theater Company's production of Evil Dead the Musical. And again, this is Ms. Sarah Goldstein, who takes on the role of Cheryl in Red Branch Theater production of Evil Dead the Musical. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks.
Thank you. This is Mr. Cole Watts, who plays Ed in Red Branch Theater Company's production of Evil Dead the Musical. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again soon. So, there you have it. Straight from the horse's mouth and the very talented cast of Red Branch Theater Company's production of Evil Dead the Musical. If you want more information on this production or others, please check us out at our website, backstagebaltimore.wordpress.com, and click on the Backstage Bits tab. So, until next time, thanks so much for joining us.